Welcome to Virtualized Geek Tech Talk episode 30. You know what? It's been a while since I've engaged you guys via this medium, via the YouTube channel. Mainly because I wanted to change kind of the format, or not necessarily the format, but the frequency of the content that I was posting. I wanted to make sure that I talked about topics that I think I could really engage you guys on via Google Plus and YouTube. And today's topic, I think, is a pretty engaging topic. I think it's meaty enough that it at least warranted a video before the end of the year. And that's the topic of AWS kind of versus everything else. So over the past couple of weeks, I've had some pretty interesting posts that's gotten some pretty interesting engagement, either on Twitter or on the blog directly, and that's virtualizedgeek.com. You can it's spelled right down there for you guys. But basically, the concept is AWS not kind of enterprise ready. That's not entirely true. AWS, Amazon has made some strides in a lot of different areas. Obviously, their foray into desktop as a service is a needed feature. The whole concept of being close to the data, I think, is very critical. If Amazon hopes to outsource the data center to their cloud, or outsource the enterprise data center to AWS, they need to be able to provide realistic and reliable desktop performance. So VDI is most definitely a way to provide that service. Obviously, AWS is seeing an uptick in the enterprise in the form of shadow IT. So when I say that AWS is not enterprise ready, it's not enterprise ready as far as the IT manager and the CIO. We're not consuming those services. So we're not, taking Amazon's service, putting a front end in front of that and allowing our end users to consume that for various reasons. But before we get into those reasons, I wanted to kind of focus on the enterprise IT discussion, or specifically the shadow IT discussion part of the Amazon use case. Amazon has been extremely compelling for individual departments. The ideal that they can just whip out their credit card, get the compute resources that they need, hire in-house developer to spin up a Amazon cloud-based application, and get the type of response time and elasticity that they need to deliver whatever project or mission they're working on is extremely compelling. And I think from a business perspective and from an IT operations perspective, we understand that. So we'll take a solution like OpenStack, Eucalyptus, vCloud, take your pick of the various cloud managers and cloud providers out there. We take those solutions and we build very robust solutions that offer the same richness as Amazon, but for whatever reason, the shadow IT crowd is not taking up those services. They're just not consuming it. And I think as a result, enterprises are kind of looking at OpenStack, and they're looking at vCloud, and they're looking at these providers. And this is just one reason they're shrugging their shoulders at it, because the bottom line is that if our customers don't consume the service, then what's the point of deploying it? Or if we haven't really considered why they're not deploying the services and we build them and they don't come, then we've just spent a lot of time and money on solutions that ultimately didn't meet the requirements of our enterprise customer. So I kind of want to, one of the other blog posts was about kind of the, taking a look at the nature of the shadow IT. So one of the things that we take for granted when it comes to shadow IT is that they're not IT professionals. They're mainly developers, and they don't know how to run IT operations. They know what they need, and they know that Amazon or services like Amazon can provide what they need very quickly. So they build, in a lot of cases, pretty robust and production-like applications built on the whole AWS Amazon model. They develop cloud development skills and familiarity with the Amazon API, the AWS API, and that's kind of what they know. So my argument in a post was, is one of the reasons why OpenStack or vCloud or any one of your solutions are not getting traction with this shadow IT cloud is because of API compatibility. These developers, whether or not the enterprise intended them to learn AWS APIs or not, that's what they know. We can draw a parallel to kind of .NET programmers. I don't see a whole lot of the .NET cloud moving over to developing in Linux environments because they know .NET. They build Windows applications. Those Windows applications do what they need to do, and there's really not from a developer perspective, why develop on Linux if the resource that I'm developing on is virtually free, which for a development crowd there is no cost internally from an IT perspective. It's a hidden cost for them to develop on .NET versus on a LAMP stack or whatever we use in the Linux world. So there's not a lot of incentive to move unless there's an artificial incentive placed on them by the CIO. So bringing back to the Amazon conversation, again, if they have a budget and they can say, and we give them a perfectly fine OpenStack environment that gives them all of the richness of the AWS experience, and there's not a compelling reason to embrace it, whether it's this is the problem with shadow IT. The CIO can't come into the marketing department and say, "Thou shalt use the internal private OpenStack cloud." That's the advantage of them having their credit card and being able to go out to AWS. There has to be a compelling reason for them to change. So I thought, maybe if we provided complete API compatibility with the AWS cloud, that would help developers stop that shadow IT, change their habits, and start consuming the internal resources that's available to them. And then you have to think about, what's the incentive? And the incentive is pretty much cost. The question boils down to, can I, whether it's the same credit card-like transaction or if it's a internal chargeback system, whatever the chargeback mechanism is, can I help that developer reduce a pain point for them, which is cost? And I can guarantee you that any shadow IT resource, when they get surprise AWS bills. So if we can give them that whole, I hate to bring this bad example to them, but we can give them that whole .NET Windows is free attitude to their, if we can hide the cost. Again, and this is one thing that IT does well, is it hides the cost of doing enterprise IT from the end user. If it's just part of their regular bill, their regular chargeback, then I think it becomes a much more appealing solution, especially if we can give them a familiar look and feel that they don't have to go and get retrained. Again, I think we have to look at it as a partnership and really as us servicing as competition to services like AWS, that we need to give compelling reasons for these folks in these departments to move over. And it just can't be, we can do everything that Amazon does. Of course you can do everything that Amazon does, but why change? Why, we have to give them a reason to fight inertia, basically. So, you know what? I would love to hear feedback because I know you guys are pretty passionate about this Amazon versus AWS. I think I'll make that the title of this session, Amazon versus I'm sorry, Amazon AWS versus OpenStack. I think it's a fundamental question that's just not a technical question, but this is really where we need to put on our business hats and really understand from a end user, the developer's scenario, what's the compelling reason to use the internal IT resources versus a resource that I don't have all these restrictions on us. Which also brings us to a whole other conversation about software-defined networking and being able to explode out to services like AWS. Visit the blog virtualizedgeek.com or follow me on Twitter at virtualizedgeek to get more of this conversation. Like the video comment is now integrated with Google Plus. And we'll talk to you guys hopefully before the new year. But if not before the new year, you guys have a happy new year and talk to you in social media. Thanks.